The sleek, private hangar gleamed under the morning sun, its glass walls reflecting the pristine lineup of luxury aircraft within. Will Smith's shoes clicked against the polished floor as he pushed through the revolving doors, his presence immediately drawing subtle glances from the impeccably dressed sales team. The air was thick, with a distinct scent of leather and ambition, a fragrance that permeated every corner of this exclusive showroom on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Will's casual yet refined attire, a well-fitted charcoal sweater and designer jeans, stood in stark contrast to the formal suits populating the space. He moved with deliberate grace, his eyes scanning the impressive collection of private jets while maintaining an air of quiet confidence. The whispers began almost immediately, floating between the sales consultants like leaves in an autumn breeze. At the reception desk, a perfectly coiffed woman in her mid-30s watched Will's approach with barely concealed skepticism. Her manicured fingers tapped against the marble counter as she leaned closer to Roger Thompson, the senior sales consultant known for closing deals with Hollywood's elite. The exchange between them was brief, but loaded with unspoken assumptions. "I'm interested in viewing your latest G650 model," Will stated, his voice carrying the warmth and authority that had become his trademark. Roger's response was a masterclass in subtle dismissal, a raised eyebrow, a quick glance at his designer watch, and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm afraid our premium models are currently reserved for our established clientele," Roger replied, his tone suggesting Will should consider something more modest. "Perhaps I could show you our entry-level options." From across the hangar, a distinguished gentleman in a tailored navy suit observed the interaction with growing interest. His presence was almost imperceptible, yet his keen eyes missed nothing as he typed notes into his phone. Will, meanwhile, maintained his composure, engaging Roger in increasingly technical questions about the aircraft's specifications. "The thrust-to-weight ratio on the G650? I've heard it's quite impressive," Will continued, watching as Roger's confident facade began to crack under the weight of his expertise. The sales consultant fumbled through his response, his earlier dismissiveness giving way to visible discomfort. A passing engineer, Dr. Sarah Chen, couldn't help but interject when she overheard Roger's explanation. "Actually, the G650's performance characteristics are quite different from what you're describing," she corrected, earning a sharp look from Roger and an appreciative nod from Will. The dynamic in the hangar shifted perceptibly. Other potential buyers and staff members began to pay closer attention to the unfolding scene. Roger, growing increasingly flustered, attempted to regain control of the situation by suggesting that Will might be more comfortable at a different showroom. "These aircraft require significant maintenance and operational expertise," Roger explained condescendingly. "Our clients typically have extensive experience with private aviation." Will's response was simply to smile, a gesture that carried years of experience dealing with similar situations. The mysterious observer in the navy suit continued his silent assessment, his presence still unnoticed by the sales team, but increasingly significant in the unfolding drama. The morning light streaming through the hangar's windows cast long shadows across the floor, highlighting the growing tension in the room. What had started as a routine sales interaction was evolving into something far more significant, though none of the participants yet realized just how memorable this encounter would become. As Will prepared his next move, the air in the hangar grew thick with anticipation, setting the stage for a revelation that would shake the very foundation of the establishment's carefully maintained facade. If this story has captured your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. The tension in the hangar had reached a critical point, but Will Smith's composure remained unshaken. His eyes wandered deliberately across the sleek surface of the G650, its metallic skin gleaming under the sophisticated lighting system. The aircraft's presence seemed to mock Roger's dismissive attitude, standing as a silent witness to the unfolding drama. As Will circled the jet with measured steps, his phone buzzed quietly in his pocket. He made no move to answer it, knowing exactly who it was and what the message would contain. Instead, he focused his attention on the wing design, running his fingers along the smooth surface while Roger shifted uncomfortably behind him. "The winglets are quite remarkable," Will commented, his voice carrying just enough authority to make the engineer, Dr. Chen, pause in her tracks. "The enhancement in fuel efficiency must be significant compared to the previous model." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with professional enthusiasm. "Actually, Mr. She hesitated, realizing she didn't know his name. "Smith," Will offered simply, watching as recognition flickered across her face. "Mr. Smith is correct," she continued, her expertise evident in every word. "The redesigned winglets provide a 7% improvement in fuel efficiency. It's one of the most significant advancements in the model." Roger's complexion had taken on an interesting shade of pale as he watched the exchange. The mysterious observer in the Navy suit had moved closer, his presence now casting a subtle shadow over the group. The hangar's atmosphere grew heavier with each passing moment, like the air before a storm. The general manager, Michael Harrison, emerged from his office, his keen eyes assessing the situation. He had been watching through the glass walls of his elevated office, and something about the scene had finally prompted him to intervene. His expensive Italian shoes clicked against the polished floor as he approached, each step measured and deliberate. Will's attention shifted to a particular detail on the aircraft's exterior, a small customization that only someone intimately familiar with the model would notice. His fingers traced the outline of a discrete panel, and a slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. "This modification," Will noted, addressing no one in particular, "it's not standard on the G650, is it, Doctor?" Chen shook her head, clearly impressed. "No, that's a custom edition. It's quite rare to find someone who would even notice it." Roger attempted to interject, his voice carrying a nervousness that hadn't been there before. "Perhaps we should discuss more appropriate options. I believe," the man in the Navy suit suddenly spoke, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade through silk, "that Mr. Smith knows exactly what he's looking at." The statement hung in the air, heavy with implication. The general manager had now reached their group, his expression a careful mask of professional concern. The other sales consultants had abandoned any pretense of working, their attention fully focused on the scene unfolding before them. Even the receptionist had risen from her desk, sensing that something unprecedented was taking place. Will turned slowly, his eyes meeting those of the man in the Navy suit. There was a moment of silent understanding between them, a recognition that transcended the superficial judgments that had dominated the morning. The next few moments would reshape the dynamics of the entire establishment, but for now, Will seemed content to let the situation simmer, each second adding weight to the inevitable revelation that would follow. Behind them, the G650 stood as a silent testament to excellence, its presence a stark reminder of the assumptions and prejudices that had led to this moment. The morning sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting new shadows across the hangar floor, as if nature itself was adjusting the stage for the drama's next act. The atmosphere in the hangar had transformed into something electric, charged with unspoken revelations. Will Smith's presence now commanded the space in a way that made Roger's earlier dismissiveness seem not just inappropriate, but almost comically misguided. The man in the Navy suit stepped forward, finally ready to shed his anonymous observer status. "I'm Jonathan Sterling," he announced, his crisp British accent filling the space. "I sit on the board of directors for this company." The impact of his words rippled through the hangar like a shockwave. Roger's already pale complexion turned almost ghostly, while General Manager Harrison's professional mask cracked slightly, revealing a flash of genuine concern. Will extended his hand to Sterling, greeting him with the easy confidence of someone who had navigated countless such situations. "I've heard excellent things about your leadership of the company's Asian expansion," he commented, demonstrating an insider's knowledge that made Roger shift uncomfortably beside them. Sterling's eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. "I wonder, Mr. Smith, if you might share your experience of today's customer service with me. I find myself particularly interested in how we handle our potential clients." Before Will could respond, a new figure entered the hangar. Marcus Chen, Will's personal aviation consultant, walked in carrying a sleek leather portfolio. His timing was impeccable, his presence adding another layer to the unfolding drama. The receptionist, who had earlier participated in dismissing Will, now stood frozen, recognition dawning on her face. "The final documentation you requested, Mr. Smith," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent space, "including the customization specifications you approved last month." Will accepted the portfolio with a nod, turning to Sterling. "Perhaps we should discuss these modifications in detail. I believe some of them might interest your engineering team." His words carried a weight that seemed to press down on Roger's shoulders, making the sales consultant's earlier behavior seem even more egregious. Dr. Chen, who had been watching the scene unfold with growing interest, stepped forward. "The customizations Mr. Smith suggested for the fuel management system are actually quite innovative," she offered, her professional enthusiasm breaking through the tension. "I reviewed them myself last week." The revelation hit Roger like a physical blow. His eyes darted between Will, Sterling, and the G650 that he had so confidently declared off limits. The other sales consultants began to distance themselves from him, their body language speaking volumes about the shifting dynamics in the room. General Manager Harrison attempted to salvage the situation, stepping forward with a practiced smile. "Mr. Smith, please allow me to personally apologize for any misunderstanding, Sterling interrupted, his tone carrying a sharp edge beneath its polished surface. "I think we all understand exactly what happened here." He turned to Will, his expression softening slightly. "Though I must admit, your patience in allowing this situation to unfold has been remarkable." Will's response was measured, his voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had faced similar prejudices before. "Sometimes," he said, glancing at the G650 that was already his, "the best way to address assumptions is to let them play out fully." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Marcus stepped forward, opening another section of the portfolio. "The customization team is ready to begin the final modifications whenever you'd like, Mr. Smith. They're quite excited about implementing your suggestions for the entertainment system upgrade." The morning had stretched into early afternoon, the sun now high above the hangar's glass ceiling. Its rays caught the G650's surface, creating a brilliant display that seemed to underscore the magnitude of Roger's misjudgment. The private jet stood as a gleaming testament to the folly of making assumptions, its presence now a silent rebuke to those who had so quickly dismissed its rightful owner. The revelation of Will Smith's true status had transformed the hangar into an arena of shifting allegiances and unspoken recriminations. Roger stood isolated, his earlier confidence shattered, while his colleagues expertly maneuvered to distance themselves from his actions. The crystalline afternoon light streaming through the hangar's windows seemed to spotlight every micro-expression, every subtle gesture of discomfort. Jonathan Sterling moved with purposeful grace toward the G650, gesturing for Will to join him. "Your modifications to the entertainment system are particularly intriguing," he commented, his voice carrying across the space. "Our engineering team was quite impressed with your understanding of integrated systems." Will walked alongside Sterling, his presence now commanding a different kind of attention. The same people who had earlier avoided his gaze now found themselves drawn to his every movement. their expressions a mixture of admiration and embarrassment. "Doctor." Chen followed closely, her tablet in hand, eager to discuss the technical aspects of the customizations. "The neural network integration for the climate control system was your idea, wasn't it, Mr. Smith?" she asked, her professional excitement evident. "It's remarkably innovative, the way it learns from passenger preferences and adjusts automatically." Marcus Chen, Will's aviation consultant, stepped forward with another set of documents. "The environmental impact report you requested is here as well," he said, handing Will a sleek folder. "The efficiency improvements exceed our initial projections by 12%. General Manager Harrison watched the exchange with growing anxiety, his perfectly tailored suit suddenly feeling uncomfortably tight. The whispers among the staff had evolved into open discussions, their voices carrying fragments of conversation about Will's numerous achievements and contributions to technological innovation. "Perhaps," Sterling suggested, his tone deceptively casual, "we should discuss how this experience might inform our company's future training protocols." His gaze swept across the assembled staff, lingering meaningfully on Roger, who seemed to shrink further into himself. Will's response was characteristic of his approach to the entire situation, measured, thoughtful, and carrying layers of meaning. "Training is important," he agreed, "but culture runs deeper than protocols. It's about the assumptions we carry without examining them." The words resonated through the hangar, causing several staff members to shift uncomfortably. A young sales consultant in the back, relatively new to the company, raised her hand tentatively. "Mr. Smith," she began, her voice gaining strength as she continued, "your work with sustainable aviation fuel initiatives has been inspirational. I did my master's thesis on your proposals for industry-wide adoption. This revelation sparked a cascade of similar recognitions." Suddenly, the hangar was alive with voices sharing their knowledge of Will's various projects and innovations. Each comment served to highlight the absurdity of the morning's earlier treatment, creating a symphony of retrospective understanding. Sterling observed this transformation with keen interest, occasionally exchanging knowing glances with Will. The power dynamics in the room had shifted so dramatically that it seemed impossible they had ever been otherwise. Yet the evidence of the earlier prejudice remained, captured in Sterling's detailed notes and the still visible discomfort on Roger's face. Marcus approached with yet another document, this one bearing the distinctive logo of the company's research and development division. "The preliminary results from the test flights incorporating your suggestions for the navigation system," he explained, laying out the papers on a nearby console. The technical specifications detailed innovations that would influence the entire industry, innovations that had sprung from the mind of the man Roger had so dismissively tried to redirect to entry-level options. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the hangar floor as Jonathan Sterling cleared his throat, commanding immediate attention from everyone present. "I believe," he began, his voice carrying a weight that silenced all other conversations, "that this situation requires more than just acknowledgement. It demands action." Will Smith stood beside the G650, his hand resting lightly on its polished surface. The aircraft, which had been the catalyst for the day's events, seemed to gleam with renewed significance. Marcus Chen approached with a final set of documents, these bearing gold-embossed seals that caught the light. "Mr. Smith," Sterling continued, "your patience today has been extraordinary, but I suspect it wasn't entirely without purpose." His knowing smile suggested he had begun to understand the deeper implications of Will's approach to the situation. Will's response was measured, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had marked his entire career. "Sometimes the best way to create change is to let people see themselves clearly." He turned to face the assembled staff, his expression thoughtful. "The assumptions we encountered today aren't unique to this facility. General Manager Harrison stepped forward, his composure notably strained. "Mr. Smith, if I could just explain." But Sterling raised a hand, silencing him mid-sentence. "I believe Mr. Smith is about to explain something far more significant," Sterling interjected, nodding encouragingly to Will. Marcus opened the embossed documents, revealing paperwork that caused visible shock among the management team. Dr. Chen, who had moved closer to examine the technical specifications, suddenly straightened, her eyes widening in understanding. "These aren't just purchase documents for the G650, she breathed, her professional composure momentarily slipping. "This is a partnership agreement," Will completed her sentence, his voice steady. "My technology firm has been in negotiations with the board for months regarding the implementation of our AI-driven aviation systems across your entire fleet." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Roger, who had been standing in increasingly isolated silence, swayed slightly on his feet. The other sales consultants exchanged shocked glances, the full impact of the morning's misjudgments becoming devastatingly clear. Sterling's smile had grown wider. "Perhaps now would be a good time to mention that Mr. Smith's company holds several patents crucial to the future of private aviation. Patents that will revolutionize how these aircraft operate." Will moved away from the G650, walking slowly toward the center of the group. "The entertainment system modifications you've been discussing? They're just the beginning. We're looking at a complete reimagining of private aviation, from fuel efficiency to passenger experience." The young sales consultant who had mentioned Will's work earlier stepped forward again. "The Sustainable Fuel Initiative. It's not just a proposal, is it? It's already in development. Phase 1 testing completed last month," Marcus confirmed, producing another document from his seemingly endless portfolio. The results exceeded all expectations. The hangar had grown unnaturally quiet, the weight of understanding settling over everyone present. Will Smith hadn't just come to purchase an aircraft, he had come to observe how the company handled its future partner. The morning's display of prejudice and dismissiveness had played out in front of not just a potential customer, but a key figure in the company's future. The late afternoon sun painted the hangar in warm hues of gold and amber, a stark contrast to the cool, professional atmosphere that had descended over the assembled group. Will Smith stood at the center of attention, but not in the way Roger had first perceived him. Now he commanded the space with the quiet authority of someone who had orchestrated a masterclass in human behavior. "The partnership agreement includes a significant section on corporate culture," Sterling announced, his voice carrying a note of finality. "Mr. Smith was quite insistent on this point during our negotiations. Now I understand why he wanted to experience our customer service firsthand." Will's expression remained thoughtful as he surveyed the room. "Change doesn't happen through mandates alone," he observed, his words carrying the weight of experience. "It happens through understanding, through moments that make us question our assumptions." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her tablet displaying a complex array of technical specifications. "The integration of Mr. Smith's AI systems will require extensive training for all staff," she explained, her excitement barely contained. "This isn't just about technology, it's about changing how we approach aviation entirely." General Manager Harrison, who had been studying the partnership documents with increasing concern, finally found his voice. "Mr. Smith, while I cannot adequately express our regret for this morning's misconceptions, I want you to know that we are fully committed to implementing whatever changes you deem necessary. Starting with some immediate personnel adjustments," Sterling added, his gaze falling meaningfully on Roger, who had the good sense to look thoroughly chastened. Will raised a hand, his gesture silencing the murmurs that had begun to circulate. "Today's events weren't about punishment," he stated firmly. "They were about awareness. about understanding that excellence, innovation, and ability don't conform to our preconceptions. Marcus stepped forward with one final document, a comprehensive training program that would be implemented across all the company's locations. This program, Will explained, will be part of our legacy, not just teaching technical skills, but fostering an environment where every customer, every idea, and every possibility is given fair consideration. The young sales consultant who had recognized Will's work earlier caught his eye. "Will this training program be implemented internationally?" she asked, her professional demeanor barely containing her enthusiasm. "It will," Will confirmed, a slight smile playing at his lips, along with a mentorship program designed to identify and nurture talent from all backgrounds. He turned to Sterling, extending his hand. "I believe we're ready to begin the next phase." Sterling grasped Will's hand firmly, their handshake symbolizing far more than a mere business agreement. "The future of aviation," he announced to the assembled staff, "will be built on innovation, understanding, and inclusion. Today has been a powerful reminder of why all three elements are essential." As Will prepared to leave, he paused beside the G650 that had catalyzed the day's events. "This aircraft," he mused, running his hand along its sleek surface one final time, "represents more than luxury or status. It represents possibility, the possibility of rising above our limitations, our prejudices, and our preconceptions." The hangar fell silent as Will Smith made his way toward the exit, leaving behind a transformed atmosphere and a group of people forever changed by their experience. The sun's dying rays caught the G650's surface one last time, creating a brilliant display that seemed to illuminate the path forward. A path that would reshape not just one company, but an entire industry's approach to innovation, service, and human dignity. End of story. Dear viewers, we hope Will Smith's powerful lesson in perception and prejudice has touched your hearts and minds. This story reminds us that change often begins with a single moment of awareness. If you've been moved by this narrative of transformation and growth, we invite you to join our community of storytellers and truth seekers. Subscribe to our channel and share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever faced similar prejudices? How did you handle them? Let's continue this important conversation together. Remember to like this video and enable notifications to never miss our upcoming stories of courage, dignity, and positive change. Your support helps us spread these vital messages of understanding and growth. Until our next story, keep challenging assumptions and fostering positive change in your own communities.